We are Agent Cell 3. This is Section 4, Negotiation. We're here to debrief you, and we are comprised of Claudia McClellan, Thomas Hazeldine, Abby Smith, and myself, Matthew Lerdahl. We'll start off with a few definitions that really capture the key information in this section. Pre-negotiation. This is a frame of mind that is very important to set. Set your parameters for how you want things to go. What will be your minimum acceptable takeaway, and set the goals for the negotiation. Understand the other side's position. Pre-negotiations can often be overlooked, but this will cause major flaws during the negotiation process. Pre-negotiation sets the tone for the negotiation. Negotiation, putting the pre-negotiation plan to work. Keeping a strict adherence to your plan and not conceding too much to begin with. One side should not give something without gaining something in return. Oftentimes, people will concede too much in the beginning of the negotiation, and this will put them too far behind their pre-negotiation goals. It's important to hold to your plan, and when you give, make sure you receive something in the negotiation process. And finally, post-negotiations. This is a stage that is important to celebrate the successful negotiation. Having respect for the other side will encourage better relations and successful future negotiations. The post-negotiation phase should be something of a celebration, or at least a conversation that you have with the other side that recaps and talks about the high points of negotiation that will set up the relationship for a positive future.
Reflections. For my reflection, something that stood out to me from this week's material was that you're actually not supposed to come to a negotiation right away. And when you do that, the other person may believe that it's easy to get you to concede more in the future. This could have been useful information to me during my current job because I would always adjust to whatever everyone asked of me at the beginning.
While I was listening to the Harvard Principles of Negotiations, he talked about how important it is to define what criteria an acceptable solution must have. Creating these acceptable criteria make it easier to come up with a whole solution. I think too often in the workplace, we think in a solution mindset without thinking about what criteria would make an acceptable solution.
The point that struck me most was that doing research before an interview or negotiation can be a key factor. You have to know where you and your opposition are coming from. And it's crucial to have your key points lined out so that you know if you're, fighting for what you set as a minimum, or if you're, setting your parameters too high at a maximum. Without those things, you're not really setting yourself up for success.
So for my reflection, I actually have zero experience with negotiation. So this was a really interesting topic for me to learn about. But the role-playing aspect of this section was really fun. Being able to put it into practice with my group partner, Thomas, helped me know what to expect when negotiating for future prospects. Something I really want to work on is creating a walkaway point and staying firm with what I planned during the pre-negotiation process, which role-playing helped put it into perspective to a potential real-life scenario, which I appreciated.
For perspectives, a quote we got from the steps of the negotiation process is, do your homework, know who's sitting on the other side of the table and what's important to them. This is an important step to the pre-negotiation step of the process, because once you are able to put yourself in their see their perspective, you're able to better understand how to guide the conversation and know how to get to the root of the problem quicker. An example of this is if you remember your boss has struggled in the past to find people to work evenings. When you go to ask for an upcoming evening shift off, you offer to double the amount of evening shifts you work the following week.
In applications, we sought out to find a few ways that we could apply some of these theories in the section to real life scenarios. One is using pre-negotiation planning and minimum acceptable takeaways will give you a strong position in a wage negotiation. This could be used in a really good way to go into negotiation over an hourly wage, for an example, and have in mind what your minimum hourly wage that you would accept during the negotiation process is. Another would be doing enough research to understand where the other side is coming from will make your position sound more credible. This could be well utilized when negotiating work responsibilities. It's hard when you're trying to negotiate with a coworker on taking on more responsibilities, if you don't understand their workload or their capacity very well, it's going to be hard for them to want to help you out. And finally, learn to find the root of the problem and separate the person from the problem. This will go a long way in keeping negotiations productive, especially when you rely on them to move forward. Helping the other party feel heard and understood will be key to getting them onto your side to move forward in negotiation.
Looking at cognitions, one of my favorite readings that we did for this section was the article of how to negotiate your salary and 37 tips you need to know. Some of the things that made me think, the top 2 tips that I really liked, which I think would challenge me and most of my group members as well, is pick top of the range and know when to walk away. So what that means is pick top of the range, assume top of pay when you're negotiating. So go highball your salary, and most likely your employer will try to negotiate you down. So that will give you, by trying to highball it, that will give you some wiggle room to get you down to something that you're comfortable with accepting. And then coming up with a walkaway point, which is a final offer that's so low that you have to turn it down. I think this can be a little bit scary, but this can be part of your pre-negotiation thinking and process and planning, and knowing when to walk away from an offer, knowing it will never be easy, but it's important to know when to do it. And it's powerful to be able to say no. It's a power move.
Awesome. And to wrap things up here with our key concepts, the first one we had was defined planning will go a lot further than being caught off guard. What we tried to get at with this point was, if you can clarify what your goals are and what your, like Claudia just said, walk away point is, you'll have a much more successful negotiation in the beginning, because you've thought things through and you've come prepared to the table to discuss and have an intelligent conversation, rather than just an argument that doesn't necessarily mean make a productive outcome. Secondly, we decided that you have to know where you can concede and what goals can't budget. So similar to what I just said, with the planning, this is the plan in action, kind of like Matthew mentioned in the definitions. But an additional point that we added was humility is key. If you come in guns a-blazing to any kind of negotiation, it's going to shut the process down. It's a process that has to work itself out, and you have to know what items you're willing to give up or what items you absolutely cannot walk away without. So if you don't have that figured out in the pre-negotiation, you're never going to succeed in your actual conversation. And third, last of all, is building strong relationships will be the side effect of a successful negotiation. We really like this point, because if you go into every negotiation intending to stand up for or go after what you really feel like you need, but also walk away with a new friend or someone that you can, respect as you leave, that's going to be the number one most powerful tool that you have. If your opposition feels respected at a minimum, then you're always going to be able to come back and continue to have intelligent conversations with that person. So that's negotiation for you. Thank you.
Mission accomplished.